Okay, so we're back recording again. Um, okay, so could you tell parents what the headgear effect is?
All right, so let's take a step backward from that and
Okay.
say that one of the one of the most common elements of all malocclusions, whether they're open bites, deep bites, cross bites, class 1, class 2, class 3, crowded, spaced, whatever it is that the maxilla, the upper jaw, is not developing the way it should. And generally, it's more narrow, it's not grown as forward in the face, and it is longer. In other words, it sort of sags and droops.
Hmm.
And I'll give you a drawing that will depict that, so
Okay.
you can see the difference, right?
Sure.
So the in order to reverse that occurrence to the upper jaw, you really have to get the upper jaw to change in all three dimensions of space. You have to make it wider, you have to bring it back forward, and if you can, early enough, you want to lift it back up. Now, I say lift it back up in quotation marks because that can be really a net effect of treatment. But the, the basic concept is this: you want to try to get the jaw to go back to where it was supposed to be in the first place. One of the places the jaw was not supposed to be is further back. So the problem is with a lot of orthodontic techniques that that they will put a backward pressure or limit forward growth of the upper jaw.
Hmm.
So the so-called headgear technique, the headgear effect,
Hmm.
is where you have an appliance that pushes backward on the upper teeth,
Hmm.
and of course, that's going what I would say is most likely the wrong direction,
Hmm.
and because we want to help the jaw grow forward. So,
Okay. Um, I know a lot of orthodontists don't use headgear so much anymore because of compliance reasons or other reasons, but I've been told that now we have temporary anchorage devices that can do the same thing. So is that something patients should be aware or parents should be aware about?
the temporary anchorage devices can be used for the benefit or the harm. I think it's a tool that's used. It really does help us do things that we were never able to do
Hmm.
or not easily able to do uh, with, with traditional techniques. The problem of where to pull from and what to pull against in orthodontics is called anchorage problems, and having a stable, solid anchor can be a terrific thing. But it's more what direction are you moving the teeth? That's important, not so
Okay.
much that technique.
Okay. So parents need to watch for anything that is pulling the upper jaw backwards into the airway.
Right. So to help the face grow more fully, we want the jaws to grow more forward.
Okay.
We want more room for tongue space, not less room for tongue space.
Hmm.
We want more airway and not less airway. When we
Okay.
say airway, we're talking about that passage that goes in from the nose, through the nose to the back of the throat, down behind the soft palate,
Hmm.
down behind the tongue, and then down, into the lungs.
Okay.
So that upper airway, we want that to grow fully and as big and wide as possible.
Okay. Okay. I heard that retracting the upper jaw can also have a retractive effect on the lower jaw.
Right. So, in general, the top teeth are supposed to overlap the bottom teeth, and usually they do.
Hmm.
And the fear is that when the upper jaw is not grown and developed the way it should, that the lower jaw kind of becomes becomes victim of that circumstance by not being able to grow past where the upper jaw is.
Okay.
So, yeah, and we see all kinds of combinations. Actually, we see times when the lower jaw managed to grow quite well,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have what's commonly called underbite. Um, Most underbites, I feel, are still an underdeveloped upper jaw, not an
Okay.
overdeveloped lower jaw, although
Got it.
that can happen in certain circumstances.
Okay.
So,
Could you explain to parents mechanically the 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 danger that extractions poses to tongue space and the airway?
right. So anything that that draws the front teeth back
Mm-hmm.
or holds them back if they are too far back already,
Mm-hmm.
or pushes them back further, is going to reduce the amount of space for the tongue. And
And how does that impact the airway when there's less tongue space?
well, the tongue is it's a muscular organ that has to fit in the space. It's literally held into the cage of the mouth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if the cage gets smaller in the front, the tongue has to go somewhere, and that somewhere is more towards the back of the mouth.
Bingo.
Right, and so that's what we see happening in people with sleep disordered breathing,
Mm-hmm.
is that the tongue is starting to interfere with the passageway while you sleep,
Hmm.
especially once muscles relax. You're on your back, the tongue gets starts to relax, and it falls backward into the airway. The soft palate falls into the airway, and if the airway is already small to begin with, which is very common in people with crooked teeth, because of the jaw shape problem, then it starts to cut off the airway. And the more the airway gets cut off, the more air turbulence there is, and then you get snoring. And once the snoring happens, then you start getting airway resistance, where it's actually hard to move air through the airway.
Hmm.
And then you get to the point where it actually closes off.
Hmm.
And that's called an apnea,
Okay.
meaning no breath. And apnea will happen sort of as an end stage disease after not only the tongue is falling back, the tissues are inflamed, they're all beaten up and flabby and so forth, but your nervous system is shot, literally shot at night, because it's just tired out from fighting this breathing problem all along, and it fails to wake you up.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're not breathing. You're literally suffocating for seconds until your brain finally gets the idea that you're not breathing and startles you awake. And that's where obstructive sleep apnea comes from. So we're talking about what do you do at ages, with the adults. When they have obstructive sleep apnea, that's really the end stage of what we see starting to develop even at birth.
Question about retainers. So I've been told that the face continues to widen. The upper jaw and lower jaws are widening, into late teens, sometimes early 20s even. If we take a fixed retainer, a fixed width upper and holly lower, when a kid is, say, 14, 15, and are we then limiting their growth and in fact limiting the growth of the airway?
Well, first of all, retainers are needed, and they're needed for life, because when you've had orthodontics done and your teeth are straight, you don't want to see them get crooked again.
Mm-hmm.
You paid a lot of money, spent a lot of time, you don't want to let them go. And every orthodontist will tell you that retainers are for life. I don't think anybody pulls any punches with that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's a removable retainer or it's a fixed retainer, they need to be worn at least part-time, indefinitely, to keep the teeth. Now, why is that? It's because basically you never really addressed the reason that the teeth got crooked in the first place. And so if you don't address that, then the same things that happened to the teeth in the beginning are likely to happen again. It may not go back all the way, but they'll go toward it.
Hmm.
Now, if you do address the reason why the teeth are getting crowded or crooked, and you address it early enough, then not only do you not need retainers, you don't need braces,
Hmm.
right? So the thing is, retainers are definitely a stopgap measure,
Okay.
and they do have side effects. They're holding the teeth imbalance, but they're not addressing the imbalance that caused the crooked teeth in the first place. So yes, you're holding the jaw from growing more. You're also holding that balance against another imbalance. Breathing or posture could
Yeah.
be strain in the neck, could be a strain in the jaw joints, strain in the cranial bones. So, I think that if you do orthodontics, because still people want straight teeth, right? I mean, it is sort of a nice thing to take braces off, see how beautiful the teeth can be. But you want to do that in balance with the rest of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do that, then I don't think you're going to find, the retainers to be so limiting.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you want to tell the parents about? Aesthetically, what happens to a kid when the jaws are retracted with headgear or temporary anchorage, and the width is locked with the fixed retainers? What kind of facial profile do they get?
Well, it's not what they get; it's what they already have.
Hmm.
And I beg parents to start looking at what has already happened to their child's face,
Hmm.
and to realize that as beautiful and as precious as your children are, that there are things that are happening to their faces because of the habits of modern life. And that if you want a better outcome for your child's face, then you want to work in a way that genetics intended it to grow. So that is more forward, fuller, room for the tongue, room for breathing. Breathe through your nose, lips together, tongue on the roof of your mouth.
Hmm.
Start as early as you can in addressing these habits, because the face is growing rapidly from birth onward. And by the time you get to braces age, that the facial growth is done.
Okay. Okay.
It's never too early to address the issues that are going to create problems with facial growth.
Okay. I'll pause the recording
Okay.
and